the host of the Pete Souza Show, ESPN's own, Rogue Media Sports' own, Inside the 12's own, Pete the Meat Souza. I know he is way into the documentary premiering tonight.
Oh, I can't wait, dude.
So this is not the last you'll hear from Pete this week on this show, I'm guessing. We will have some reaction to that. But I do want to talk to you about what was, maybe still is, your team, the Philadelphia 76ers, Pete, big Philly guy. And we've talked about this guy a few times this year, and you've talked a lot about him off the air. We'll talk some Joel Embiid here. He gets shut down for the season over the weekend. It's kind of buried on a Friday afternoon news dump of like, yeah, actually, we're done with him for this year. And I saw, like, the first headline I saw was Joel Embiid shut down for the season, halting Sixers playoff chances. I'm like, they're 21-38. This didn't change anything.
I looked that up after I saw that headline. I was like, wait, how far back are they? They're like, dude, they have.
I'm like way up at the top of the East, so I don't really know what's going on down there, like the play-in stuff. But I'm like, I don't know if this was 15 years ago in the East, you could get in like 5 games under. But
I'm not going to steal anything from the great Stephen A. Smith. I will just borrow. The Eagles won 20 games this year. The 76ers have won 18, or vice versa. The Eagles, yeah. I think that's it. Yeah,
Eagles won 18.
The Eagles have, up until
21.
Yeah. So the Eagles have won more games in the. I mean, it's a joke, dude. No.
Well, not more. If they won 18 and the Sixers have won 20.
Okay, that's okay.
But it is embarrassing. It's embarrassing nonetheless. Per capita, I mean, the winning percentage is way off. Yeah. And I was sitting in there in that studio in the summer when they got Paul George, and I don't know how much you remember this, Pete, but I was like, am I the only one who doesn't get this Paul George thing?
Dude, I was with you.
Here we are.
When you said that, and I remember, like, dude, I couldn't agree anymore with Cam. Like, no, man, you were spot on, and I was never on board with that. There's a reason he was available, and the Sixers are a mess. And the Embiid thing, really, the Sixers came to a fork in the road in 2019 after they lost to Toronto, and it was just really as simple as, you remember that last second shot Kawhi Leonard hit in Game 7, and the organization, and again, I wasn't there, but all reporting leads to it was like, okay, you're going to go with Ben Simmons or Jimmy Butler, right? And so you go with Ben Simmons, whatever. So, and then the next year, Ben Simmons just like chokes like you've never seen before.
Doesn't want to take layups.
Yeah.
Passing up open layups. Yeah.
Like the tragic Johnson back to the back. But see, Magic had those awful, NBA Finals against the Celtics, but like he shows resilience, right? Comes back. Ben Simmons has that awful, I guess it was a second round playoff exit against the Hawks, and he's supposed to shoot a layup. He's wide open. He can't shoot it. He passes it. Like, he never, ever recovered from that. And off the floor is the biggest issue because it's clear Embiid can play, right? He's a 7-time All-Star, MVP. The issue is
MVP 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Does that not feel like 6 years ago? It technically, it wasn't even 2 years ago.
It was less than 2 years ago. Yeah. And we were kind of had your boys on the ropes for a minute, right? We got you to a Game 7.
Led that series 3-2, won home.
But that was the end for the Sixers when they lost that game to the Celtics. And when you hear the stuff like early in the season, right? Like, that's so true. Like, when the guy at the top of your roster is late all the time and isn't showing up and doesn't care a whole lot, like that, you can't have that, because the rest of the team is like, even if there's guys like Tyrese Maxey who want to come in, lock in, and give 150%, like, when your main guy is out doing whatever he wants, like, and I'm not saying he's smoking crack, but clearly he's not following the rules, right? That be on time.
You know what it would be like? You know what? I love a forced analogy. I'm going to throw in a sports analogy for you. It would be like if Vince Vaughn's character from Rudy was the best player on the team, and Rudy was the second best player on the team.
Callahan.
Yes. So when sure, whatever. Yeah, I think O'Hara's right. Yeah. So it's so Embiid is this guy who shows up late and just doesn't give. And here's Tyrese Maxey, younger guy, really good player, but also he gets seen as like Tommy Tryhard when Joel Embiid is just like showing up late. You know what I mean? And so it's like that's a terrible dynamic there, and that's kind of what the Sixers are right now.
It's an awful dynamic, and the Sixers like stink from the top to the bottom. Like Daryl Morey needs to get fired. There is going to be a major shakeup. I can tell you right now because Magic Johnson's never had more of Josh Harris's ear, especially the two of them are running, the Commanders together. You look at the success that they had. I just feel like some major changes are coming. I'm a little disappointed in Nick Nurse. I know he was put in a tough decision, but clearly he's not the guy. And this is just an awful organization, honestly. And I hate to say this, but it's like a woke organization. Like it's just like really hard to get on board with the Sixers right now. I'm sorry. It just is for me. Even if they were winning, it's hard. And I talked last week on my show. When I worked for the Sixers, it was not forever ago. The last season I was there was 2009. We were making the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It was Iguodala, like when he was like the focal point, and the crowd still embodied some semblance of what the city is, right? Now it's not even like that anymore. It's just so freaking wine and cheese from top to bottom. There's no grit in the fan base. There's no grit in the team. I could care less.
Sorry to interrupt, but I do that a lot. Does that reflect on Embiid a little bit? Because here's my kind of thought here, and this isn't necessarily Embiid's fault. There are a lot of things that are his fault. But I think when it comes to especially the NBA, when you get in a situation where Embiid's your best player, and even when he's playing well, he's hurt all the time, he's kind of bitchy to the media, there is some of that, right? And then Sixers fans are like, he's our guy. He's our savior. We're going to defend him at every turn when it comes to media narratives or whatever the hell. Does that then morph them into more of that wine and cheese crowd where they're just willing to put up with more shit and make more excuses?
No, because
I'm going there. It was kind of weird how I said it.
Well, no, look, I think some of the decisions made around the organization that kind of took care of itself.
Okay.
I don't think that's Embiid. I think that it's much easier for these fans. I mean, if your team sucks, you know the deal. Like the Patino Celtics, right? When the bottom was coming out, like they're not going to the games. You know what I mean? Like people just aren't going to support him.
By the way, as I know you love Patino, I'm going to interrupt you again because this is funny. A kid I went to high school with now lives in New York City. He's 3 years younger than me. We played lacrosse together. He lives in New York City. He went to St. John's game the other day and had all this Patino stuff on his Instagram story. And this kid, 3 years younger than me, I said, your generation doesn't know what Rick Pitino did to the Celtics. Your generation, you have no idea. All right, continue.
Well, it's very true.
Killed, sent him back years. Yeah.
I can't wait to see like that part of the documentary, by the way. I mean, that'll come at some point. But when fans just don't go to the games anymore. Like a buddy of mine was send me a message like $2 for upper level tickets and $10 for lower level at the Sixers.
You're kidding.
On secondhand sites, yeah. So nobody cares. Nobody wants to go, and that's what the organization has become.
And it's not like the Flyers are great or anything. It's not like they've just got something else to do.
But it's here we go again with
I get you.
Every year it's like here we go again. There's no passion from a city that is extremely passionate. That's when you're screwed. I mean, the stuff early in the season with Embiid when they had that players only meeting and honestly, some sucker leaks it to the media. Like that's just as shitty as Joel Embiid's behavior that you'd drop so much information from a players only meeting. But that's all you needed to know about the Sixers coming into this season. And it's a shame. And Embiid, look, your best ability is your availability. He's never available, dude. He's not. 500 and I think 450 games he's played in his career. I think he's missed somewhere around 400. I mean,
he's about to potentially go for surgery number 3 on the same knee.
Yeah, and there's the organization, guys. Like, again, I hate to be like such a negative nabobber, but like we can't figure out what's going on with this guy, like surgery wise. Like we're talking about the same shit now in March of 2025 that we were talking about in May of 2024. Like, what's up with this dude? Like, should we get him surgery or not? You know,
and if he had this injury, why is he playing in the summer?
Why is he playing in the Olympics, dude?
Yeah.
So whatever.
It's gotta be frustrating, man.
It really sucks. But honestly, it's not frustrating if you don't care. And I have totally stopped caring. That's what they've done to me. I'm totally desensitized. Like I remember when I moved to Waco, I can remember when it was 2019 when they won that first playoff series. That was a big series for this or for the whole fan base. It was like they got to the playoffs, they beat the Heat in the first round. I was like so pumped, you know, posting about it on Instagram, like just loving it. I was gut wrenching when Kawhi Leonard hit that shot in that game 7. And it's just my level of excitement and passion hasn't been the same since then.
That is wild. Not just like from the 2019, but like they were going all in this summer. Like that's, I mean, I thought it was stupid, but that's what the Paul George move was for the fan base was like, here we go. We've got the big 3 now, right? Embiid, George, and Maxey. Let's go for this thing. And here we are months later, not years later, but this feels like the deterioration of, 5 years of being non-competitive.
And the process sucked. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Like what they did there was teach an organization and a bunch of young guys how to be fucking losers. And Joel Embiid is the poster boy for that movement. And it was like,
now they're being led by a loser.
Well, or somebody who thinks it's okay to play when you can't, and that's I'll say this last point. I did a Arizona State and Utah on Saturday, and I was talking to the guy, the analyst, Corey Williams. He played at Arizona. Good player at Arizona. And he's kind of like old school. And I was like, what is the deal? Like before the game, like another one of Arizona State's best players, like isn't going to play because like something's wrong with them. And another guy's like not going to play. And it seems like nobody ever fucking plays anymore. And I'm like, yo, like what is up? And he's like, it goes back to what you and I just talked about, Cam. He's like, if you don't have a guy at the top of your roster who is like, is at practice first, is working out, getting shots up all the time. Like if that's not your guy at the top of your roster, you got no chance now because too many guys are getting paid. There's too many long-term concerns. Like if I play on this bad ankle and I'm Jaden Quaintance and I could be the number 5 pick in the 2026 draft, if I just go on ice now until that draft happens, why am I going to play? You know what I mean? It's
interestingly enough, he's got a lot of Embiid in him as a player. I don't know what his attitude's like, but like play style.
Yeah, no, totally. And so we're in a really odd space now for a lot of these teams because, and I think keep your eye in the NCAA tournament in particular, like the teams that have the guys that are the dogs at the top of the roster, I would look for them to be the teams that gut it out and win a championship.
I have 2 important Embiid questions for you as we react to this news that he shut down for the season. And really, from a Celtics standpoint, I thought so in August, but it took till March for a lot of other NBA fans to realize this. It's like that's one less thing to worry about. And not just this year, but probably for years to come. But 2 questions for you about Joel Embiid that are really important. First one is, will he ever play for the Sixers again?
Yeah.
And this isn't the second question, but I do want to follow up with this. I saw an article this weekend, and I should have it in front of me. I can't remember who wrote it, where it was from, but it was about how the Sixers should have traded Joel Embiid last year. That's one full season removed from the MVP. They should have traded him. And the one they point out is the Knicks, that there was some real interest from the Knicks. And they end up, of course, sending a ton to Minnesota to get Karl Anthony Towns. It feels like a hindsight 2020 kind of move. Very easy to say in March of 2025 that you should have traded him in June of 24, July of 24. Do you think that was even on the table for the Sixers?
No, because if it was, it wasn't very long because what's his face? Daryl Morey he convinced Josh Harris and those guys, according to really good reporting, to sign that crazy contract with Embiid and give him all that money, which is why I think you'll see him play for the Sixers again, and is why I think that he probably wasn't like that trade wasn't very realistic for the Sixers to execute. One, because I think Morey, like you said, was all in on this idea of these three. And two, because the contract is so huge. I don't know how you make that deal.
It's going to be really tough now. Really tough now. We are in year one of that deal. Second big question to kind of close out my thoughts on this.
Yes, I am watching Running Point with Kate Hudson. Good.
Thank
show.
God.
Okay.
Thank God. We've talked about the problems that Embiid's brought to this locker room and what he's done to this franchise, so to speak, but also we touched on the process and the breeding of losers, right? So with all of this taken into account, Pete, will we think of Joel Embiid as a tragic figure years from now? The guy with all the talent, but had a ton of injuries, didn't have a good organization around him. Do we see him as a Bill Walton in the future?
Well, I was Bill Walton is not actually tragic in a sense where he won a title when he was the MVP in Portland in '77, right?
Yep.
And he really did kind of salvage some special years in Boston.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't, but I say that to say he won't even reach that level. I think he's somewhere between Bill Walton and Sam Bowie, because there's no championship with him at all. I mean, not even close, right?
Yeah.
Never made to a conference finals, I don't think.
Right.
So he's got no business being in the Bill Walton discussion, but he's not as bad as like a Sam Bowie. Like the guy won an MVP.
Yep.
So
that's an interesting because we know a lot about the history of the NBA. It's tough to think of an in between, right? Like you can talk about a Grant Hill who had a ton of injuries and his career never really became what it should have, but he is in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, he's better than like Ralph Sampson.
Right. Ralph Sampson might be a good one. Although Ralph Sampson did win an MVP, we're talking about a guy who does have a great prime when you look at it in Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
And will probably make the Hall of Fame because everyone makes the basketball Hall of Fame, but
he probably will. Yeah.
Am I wrong? Like he'll make it. Yeah.
Hey, I can't wait till the party we're going to have when Pete Rose gets in.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter here for some more outrageous Boston sports takes coming to you every weekday at noon Eastern time. And then after that, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are Rogue Media Sports.